Hey everybody, today we're going to walk out into the woods and discover all the different mushrooms that are growing alongside the trail. It is mid-November. Mushroom season is probably at its peak right now. I'm going to go out into the woods. I'm going to be pointing out these mushrooms that are growing alongside the trail. I'll help describe them for you so that you can know if they're edible, maybe poisonous, maybe hallucinogenic, who knows. Each mushroom is different. They're very fascinating and magical. Make sure to hit subscribe and come with me on this walk in mid-November into Mushroom Wonderland.
Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland.
So it's starting to get chilly out here. Mushroom season in Western Washington typically runs from September to November. And you know, it's kind of wrapping up by late November. It's usually starting to get too soggy or too cold, but we haven't had any frosts yet. It's been wet, that's for sure. But you know, mushrooms like that. They're 90% water, so mushrooms, being the fruiting body of the fungus living underground, are fruiting like crazy right now. The hot summer soil has cooled down and got really wet, and so mushrooms are popping up everywhere. So if you've ever been walking down the trail and wondering, what are these mushrooms? You know, hopefully I'll help to dispel some of that for you, describe some of these cool mushrooms that we'll see alongside the trail. Right now I find myself in this kind of mixed deciduous / conifer forest. A lot of leaf debris laying around, and the first mushroom that I encounter alongside the trail is pretty large. Look at this. Let me grab this guy out of the soil for you. Look at the size of this guy. That is a big, handsome mushroom. There's another one right here. So this one is known as the shaggy parasol. This is a really good edible mushroom, one of the first ones that I ever discovered. It was growing in my mom's field, and I looked at it in the field guides, and it looked like something that resembled it, and it said that it was a good edible mushroom. I took one of these to the mushroom show, and one of the old timers there asked me where I found it. And I knew the number one rule of mushroom foraging: don't give up your spots, you know, so I kept it a secret. But I went home and I sauteed these up in a little butter, just the cap, because the stem can be pretty woody, but it is delicious, and it's one of my favorites. So it's got this really shaggy cap, and that's why it is called the shaggy parasol. There's a few different shaggy parasols that grow in the Pacific Northwest. One of them will take on a very greenish tinge to the gills as it matures, and that is the one called the vomiter, but it really doesn't occur here in Western Washington. But most of the rest of the country, you know, if you see a mushroom that looks scaly like this, about this size, but it's got green in the gills or has a greenish tinge, that one's probably Chlorophyllum molybdeides, a poisonous mushroom known as the vomiter, make you pretty sick. But these ones, Chlorophyllum oliverii, this one is our northwest, I don't know what they call it, the brown shaggy parasol here, and it is delicious, and it's just got pure white gills, unattached, kind of looks like an amanita that way. When they're younger, they have a ring right here that you can even slide up and down the stipe, and one of the real distinguishing features is when you damage the flesh. This is the real giveaway. Amanitas won't do this, but this is going to turn orange pretty rapidly right before our eyes. You can see that orange color starting to come in. Amanitas won't do that. Shaggy parasol will. So if they look like this, real scaly on top, white gills, pretty tall, pretty medium to large size mushrooms, and then that orange damaged bruising, you know, you have a shaggy parasol. Really yummy. Chlorophyllum oliverii. This is a great one. Been fruiting for months. Said to be invasive, but nobody seems to complain too much about it. And I'll do my part to pick these and take them home and cook them up and get them out of the forest. But they're here to stay. They like these deciduous type forests. A lot of leaf litter laying around, and they are saprobic. So they just eat dying, decaying leaves, and they don't associate necessarily with trees and plants. But what a pretty specimen right there. Just some nice olive oil, salt and pepper, and just put that in the olive oil and just let it grill, basically gills down until they're golden brown. Flip it over for just a couple minutes on the top of the cap, and you know, these are way better than portobellos, and but they're kind of fragile. So you could just take the stipe off and stack them in your basket on top of each other. Just kind of make a nice stack out of them, and you got some awesome edibles. Look at how quickly that's turning orange right there. So there you go. Chlorophyllum olivarii. I'm not collecting these ones for the basket today. I don't even have a basket. So I'm going to send this one flying into the woods like a flying saucer, spread its spores, and wow, cool. I just let millions of spores go. And I didn't leave a bunch of mushroom litter right on the side of the trail. So I don't like when people do that. It kind of looks gross, you know? It's a little tacky. So if you're going to pick mushrooms to identify them, which you kind of need to do, toss it out there. Here's some more. Pretty rain beaten. But, you know, all through here in the leaves, these shaggy parasols grow every year. So they like this alder leaf duff, this speckled sunlight, and they're a delicious mushroom that I like to eat. So let's keep going into the woods. Oh man, oh man. And here's what I'm happy to see. Look at this. This one is called a candy cap, Laccarias rubitus. And these things grow out here in big numbers. There's quite a few speckling the side of the trail right here. And I can show you some of the defining characteristics of the candy cap. So it's going to have a dry type of cap that is rough like an orange peel. And then when you damage the gills, these have a latex or like a milk that comes out that looks like skim milk. You see that? You know, these ones have been rained on, so they're a little wet, but the lookalikes can be quite a bit more viscid. These are actually pretty dry. So dry, rough, lactating, that sort of milky latex, and this sort of orange color darkening in the center of the disc. And the real way to know these is when you dehydrate them, typically just by air drying. I find to be the most effective and best way to do it. They smell like the richest maple syrup ever. I mean, you can smell them from across the room. So here you are, your candy cap or Laccarias rubitus. One of the things I love doing with these is to make banana bread and then just kind of crumble the dust on the top as it comes hot out of the oven. You could just take some sugar cookie mix and make candy cap sugar cookies to take to your holiday events. You know, and often these grow in big numbers. They're a Laccarias, so they're mycorrhizal. They're growing with trees, and often I find them next to these kind of hazelnut trees. And this is a nice fruiting of them. And so after a couple of observation photos, I'm going to collect these and just put them in a bag in my backpack. I don't worry about keeping them too neat. I don't have a basket with me today, but they'll be fine in a plastic Safeway bag. And you know, I'll take them home, put them on a screen or even just paper towels in your kitchen, and tomorrow morning it'll smell like sweet maple syrup. A really, really cool mushroom, Laccarias rubitus, or the candy cap. All right, and then here is another really cool, distinct, bizarre looking mushroom. This one, the Western elfin saddle. I guess that's supposed to look like an elf's saddle. So Helvella vespertina. I talk about these in quite a few videos. Very contorted stipe. Look at that. So this one, being one of the main 2 divisions of fungi, is in the ascomycota. So not to confuse anyone, but this is an ascomycete. There's another one growing right there. And so it produces its spores in a little tube-like structure called an asci that actually uses air pressure to shoot the spores out. So when this is dry, you'll often see a big puff of spores come off of it. Not today. And these are edible, but I've never heard too great of reviews about them. A couple of old timers that I've met are pretty excited about eating them. I wonder if it's to be provocative. A lot of the old literature would suggest don't eat them because they thought they were related to gyromitras and they might have hydrazines, but it's kind of recently came out that they don't. So, you know, just cook your mushrooms well if you want to try them out, and put it in the comments if you've eaten these and you like them or you don't. Just kind of cool to get the community chiming in on stuff like that. So anyways, the western elfin saddle, pretty common this time of year. It can resist, it's kind of cold tolerant. So this one, Helvella vespertina, or the western elfin saddle, is a kind of a late season and winter mushroom that you'll see growing for the next couple of months pretty commonly. And if you want to eat it, just pick fresh specimens, cook them well, and report back. Thanks. Big fruiting of mushrooms growing here on the side of the trail. These ones are getting pretty hammered, but look at how thick that guy is. He's kind of violet colored gills, widely spaced, broadly attached. You see that? That means that they're like attached to the stipe, and then you see even these like pleated lines from where the gills, sort of like continue down the stipe. So the stipe is the stem in fungal language. This one is known as a deceiver because sometimes they're huge and big and umbilicate like this, and sometimes they're small and smooth. These ones, Laccaria laccata, or maybe Laccaria bicolor, kind of hard to tell them apart when they're at this stage. The weather has been really taken their toll on them. And then if we look right over here, this one, quite a bit darker colored, but wait till I flip this thing over. Boom, look at that. Come on, focus. So this one is Laccaria amethysto occidentalis, and it gets that name. It's a big, long name, right? But that means it's the amethyst colored, occidentalis meaning western. So it's the western amethyst deceiver, or Laccaria amethysto occidentalis. These ones are said to collect arsenic out of the soil, so avoid eating them. Definitely take pictures of them because they're so pretty. These are an edible but definitely forgettable mushroom. They just don't taste good. I've eaten them and was disappointed because they're really common. They can grow with real young trees. These are ectomycorrhizal. Laccaria, really opportunistic. They grow into the winter, and we'll see these around for a few more months, if not all the way through winter. Laccaria, really common, not tasty, but edible. So in a pinch, survival situation, you could eat these. Maybe avoid these amethyst ones. Chances are that because of this crazy rainfall we've been having, that these might be the same thing as these. They're just more mature. I mean, look at, they're growing so close to each other, but Laccaria will do that sometimes. And but here is the epitome of the deceit of these mushrooms, because they look pretty different, hugely different in some aspects, but very closely related, so if not the same thing. So anyways, I'm going to leave those behind, but there's some of your Laccarias, real common late fall and into winter mushrooms. Ooh, check out this mushroom. Could it be a chanterelle? Oh, kind of shaped like a chanterelle, right? No, this is the false chanterelle. This one, Hygrophorapsis aurantiaca, far more delicate, true gills that are really tightly spaced. You see, there's tons of gills. Chanterelles are more like they're carved in. They're not actual like slits of paper like these are. Light on the margin, but overall, sort of a similar morphology to Chanterelles, but this one has a really defined stipe, and the gills all kind of stop uniformly, but not really. You know, there are some definite look-alike features to this. There's a couple more growing back there. And Hygrophorapsis, non-toxic, so it's not going to hurt you if you accidentally picked it and ate it. But, you know, next to a real chanterelle, I mean, way different looking, right? If you're brand new, I get it. You know, you might think they look confusing, but get your hands on some of these and on some chanterelles, and you know, really look at them side by side or inspect them, you know, and you'll quickly realize, like, oh yeah, these look quite a bit different. The false chanterelle, Hygrophorapsis aurantiaca. Some more candy caps growing here next to this little Oregon grape. And these ones are a little more dry. You can really see that kind of orange peel look. There's your candy cap, Laccarias rubitus. Yes, and I am collecting them into this plastic bag. I don't care what you say. It's okay. I can do what I want. Don't pick shame. I just didn't bring my basket today, but candy caps are a little different. I don't worry too much about them not getting damaged. And honestly, you know, I'm not 100% sold on that I'm doing a huge favor by dropping spores. And if I am, you know, I'm getting spores all over my hands, my pant legs, and everywhere. So I'm carrying these spores with me. You know, I don't know that it's super important to have a basket for that purpose. You know, to each their own, live and let live. You know, I do like carrying a basket, but sometimes I just don't have it with me. But in my backpack, I always have a little bag. So, you know, you can pluck or cut. You can take them all or leave some. It doesn't matter to me. Don't be a pick shamer. Just saying. But, you know, candy caps are really cool, and they snap, so you don't necessarily need a knife to pick candy caps. You can just snap that dirty old base right off, and you know, then they're good to go. Look at that. But these do not fall on the list of Washington State Department of Agriculture mushrooms that you can sell commercially, because they could look a lot like a little brown mushroom that's dangerous. You know, you might accidentally pick Galerina thinking that they're candy caps. Even somebody who's experienced, if you're moving fast, you know, you might make a mistake, is the way they see it. I mean, truly, my eye is trained where I find it hard to believe that I would accidentally pick the wrong mushroom. But here we are, a candy cap, Laccarias rubitus, right here. Look at that. A different mushroom, a type of Cortinarius, growing right near it. Now, if you're moving really quick, you know, or somebody who just didn't have a lot of experience, might accidentally pick these, you know, and throw them in there. And Cortinarius can be dangerous. You know, there's deadly quartz out there. So these are a mushroom. You want to take care when you're picking them and make sure you got the right thing. You know, if you're picking the wrong mushroom, you know, that's where people get into trouble. So make sure you clearly identify your mushroom, and then do a once over, you know, kind of like on Halloween, when you would, you know, your parents would look through the bag to make sure everything was kosher. There's no razor blades or needles or anything in there. You know, do that with your candy caps, just because you could sneak a couple extra other weird mushrooms in there. Right here, big wavy thing, you know. I don't think that's a candy cap. It's a type of Cortinarius. But, you know, you could make a mistake. So, just saying. Everybody makes mistakes. Don't make it be your last one. So, you know, speaking of these Cortinarius, as I look a little closer at this one, and it's very umbonate, kind of reddish brown, no real signs of any kind of a veil, these reddish kind of gills, and just its structure. This does remind me of the deadly Cortinarius that does grow here in Western Washington. So not a lot of deadly mushrooms in Washington, but this one I would be very leery of for sure. If this is Cortinarius rubellus, this is a kidney killer. So whereas amatoxins in death caps will liquefy your liver, essentially, these are going to liquefy your kidneys, maybe put you on dialysis for life. Growing right amongst the candy caps. There's another candy cap growing right there. So yeah, deadly little brown mushrooms growing amongst the delicious confectionery mushrooms. Be careful out here. But I'm going to call this Cortinarius rubellus, or the deadly web cap. There you go, more Laccaria laccata, or the deceiver. So I really like the way they look. Really few gills, really beautiful. They get a lot of this splash up from sand and rain here on the side of dirt roads and trails. Right here, it appears we have a nice flush of some other type of, probably a Cortinarius. Let's flip it over, yeah. So that orange, rusty kind of spores, these medium to large size mushrooms, and these are kind of growing together. These are in the genus Cortinarius. Lots of different Cortinarius. These ones lacking that veil, again, reminding me of Rubellus, but I'm probably wrong. But I would just treat these with extreme caution as far as just don't eat Cortinarius, okay? They can be deadly and really hard to ID. There's about 450 species here in Washington, so admire from a distance. In the middle of November up here in the northern latitudes, and look what we got here. Really cool Inocebi pallidocrimia, but these ones super umbonate. So look at that umbo, you know, it looks kind of like a nipple or something on top of the cap of some of these. Is just super whimsical. I love that. And surrounded by some other Inocebi, fiber caps, some Cortinarius, Helvella, Gallerina. Right here it looks like we have Xeromphalina. These little wiry stem guys. My gosh, there is just so many mushrooms out here right now. You literally can't take a step without stepping on some. I mean, everywhere. Cortinarius, Xeromphalina, Inocebi, Mycena. So what a time to be in the woods if you're into inspecting mushrooms, especially little tiny mushrooms. Lots of those growing out here right now. Once in a while you see a larger mushroom like this one. Look at that. The ambiguous Stropharia ambigua. Look at the black spores landing, or I guess dark purple brown spores landing on the annulus there. You see those dark spores in the gills. This one kind of yellowish colored, pale, fading to even more pale here on the edge. And you know, kind of unknown, undesired edibility. I've heard of some people eating them to a pretty bad review about tasting like wet leaves or something like that. So Stropharia ambigua. Personally, I don't eat them, but if you do, please put it in the comments. Boom, look at that. Look at that. Boom. So tough to tell. They get washed out by the rain. This one kind of yellowish, purple colored. And once you've determined that it's truly a Russula, and I know it is, you could take a little nibble, and if it's spicy, you know, to discard it. This one's got some blushing here on the stipe. Look at this kind of ochre color. I'm sure this is the shrimp brittlegill, our northwest variety, Russula olympiana. That's a big one. The worms like them too. And what's really cool is that you can go in like this. It's been, you know, munched on by slugs and bugs and who knows what. But you can help disperse its spores by simply finding a nice tree, and it just shatters when it hits the tree. Not the greatest throw, I understand. I get that, but it was okay. Got the point across. A lot of Russula spores out there in the wind now. Oh, speaking of spores in the wind, look at that. Lycoperdon perlatum, or the puffball. Everybody remembers those. So they get their spores out into the wild by, you know, turning into this little sac that's sensitive to touch, raindrops, any kind of abuse here in the forest. They're going to let a million spores out. Really, really common mushrooms. They grow everywhere. And a baby Stropharia ambigua. You just can't look anywhere here without there being mushrooms. But puffballs are good to eat when they're young and flesh is white on the inside. They can kind of bounce on the table. When they're at this stage, don't eat them. Those spores could be toxic. And who would want to eat a bunch of dry spores anyways like that? What do we got here? Oh, these are neat. Look at that cystoderma. These are very ornate mushrooms. A little bit known about them as far as like edibility. It says unknown in most of the literature. But if you notice this annulus, it's kind of like a sheath that goes around the entire stipe of the mushroom. And then they can have these little granular dots on the cap. It's getting kind of dark in here. Don't have a ton of detail on the camera right now, but this one is a really beautiful photogenic mushroom. And there's a few of them growing here. Look at the scalloped margin on that one. That's really cool looking. So some of these mushrooms are just like so beautiful and ornate and intricate. And for what? Not really sure, you know. mushroom morphology, a little bit of a mystery still. Ooh, more candy caps. Look at that, growing right on the side of the trail. It is the season for Laccarias rubidus. So this kind of habitat out here, man, I'm telling you, it is just really good for these. So having an amazing day picking candy caps. Got a couple pounds in this bag. Not bad at all. This little mushroom here looking extra slippery and slimy. Let me pull this guy up. Yeah, this is the rosy slime spike, so Gomphidius subroseus. This one yellow stipe base, very distinct yellow stipe base. Bizarre looking gills, right? They're decurrent, they're black inside. You know, these spores are black, so you can see them landing there, right here. Those are all natural spore deposit. And this one is actually a gilled bolete, and it's a parasite. It's parasitizing some Suillus mycelium, so some mycelium of a different mushroom that's not actually fruiting right here right now, but the Gomphidius is fruiting. Lets me know that Suillus is here. And these are edible but forgettable from what I hear. Look how glutinous that cap is, just super viscid, so you can even peel that slime layer off. Hard for me to do while I'm holding the camera, but basically you can peel that slime layer off. I'm not eating them, but other people are. So there you go, Gomphidius subroseus, or the rosy slime spike. Well, this is a pretty distinct and ornate mushroom. Look at this thing, very scaly, kind of like the cystoderma we were looking at, but this one even more floccose. This one, Lepiota magnaspora. This one has big spores, which is like 14 to 16 microns. Doesn't mean much to the layman, but you know, that's one of the ways that you can tell this species is to put the spores under a microscope. So it's got white spores, and it's a saprobe, so it's actually just growing on the needle duff here. And very dark in the disc, very scaly, appendiculate margin, a lot of appendiculate material here all over the stipe, and a pretty abrupt annulus there, pretty distinct, and a gorgeous mushroom, one of the more beautiful Lepiota. A lot of these Lepiotas are dangerous, some of them known to be deadly, so I would leave it alone as far as a culinary thing, but really cool to photograph. Beautiful, and it's fun to get under the microscope, so check that one out, Lepiota magnaspora. So many mushrooms to see out here in the woods, and if you want to support what I'm doing, go to mushroom-wonderland.com, get some merch. You could go to Patreon, get a membership there, help support me there. And it's getting dark and it's getting rainy, so I'm going to go for now, but I'll be back soon. Stay tuned, and much love.